the Blairing Out with Eric Blair show, and today I'm pleased to have the man, the myth, the legend, Michael Graves. Let's face it, you didn't really bring up Jerry's Only's name that much when we talked about the Misfits, a little bit. So I'm feeling that maybe there was a little bit of tension there, and I guess there was. Sure. But can you still love the person when you see them? Can you give them a hug, or is there this constant resentment?
I love those guys. I do. I love Jerry. I love Doyle, and I love Chud. It's, I certainly have my problems with the way that things went down, which both publicly and privately I'm willing to shout from the rooftops because I know my part and my place in all of it. On the flip side, you don't get much out of them, and that's fine. You know, those guys made me. I came through them. You know, Jerry used to make us, and I used to think he was a crazy person, but he used to make us rehearse in a freezing cold barn in the middle of the winter. I was like, what is this guy doing? But it was like Karate Kid, you know? We got to Europe, and it's freezing cold, and we're under the harshest conditions, and all of a sudden, you're like, all right. Now, that's why he was making me run around the machine shop and be freezing cold, because it was making me tough. So those guys made me, you know. Doyle as well. Like I'm who I am in a lot of ways because they built me, and I came through, you know, Misfits boot camp, if you will. But there was a lot of things that weren't right, that were done to me, that were not even that it was done to me. It was done to the band. It was done to the band, and it was done to what we were collectively working towards, and it came apart for really selfish, stupid, terrible reasons. And then you have people, you know, like we talked about, you know, people like that were just in the nucleus of what the Misfits were, that just made us sick and made us come apart. You listen to the incredible music that we made, and you listen to songs like No More Moments or Fiend Without a Face, and where we were going could have been amazing. And so, you know, I try to not have bad things come out of my mouth. You know, you're not supposed to talk bad about people. You're always supposed to raise them up and say good things. But, you know, so it's hard because there was some really not so nice things that happened to me as a young man. And these guys were older. You know, they were married, they had kids, and they knew what was happening. They knew how much they could take advantage of me, and they did.
How would you describe Marky Ramone's personality during your time in Marky Ramone's Blitzkrieg?
Marky's a fun dude. Just to be able to hang out with him and hear the stories of the way that him and Dee Dee, you know, the things that him and Dee Dee used to do together, and were great. You know, Marky loves to eat. You know, Marky loves cars, and Marky loves to have fun. So it was you know, we got on just fine. And plus, he's such a good drummer, and he's so focused and dedicated to just being great. It was very motivating.
Did you know Joey Ramone?
I did.
How did you come to know Joey Ramone, and what was your relationship like?
It's funny. The first time I met Joey Ramone, he was. We walked into the CBGB's bathroom together in circles, like in the Misfits circle. I got to hang out with him and talk to him and work with him. And you know, I was sort of quiet and shy around all those guys. But you know, it was just like hanging out with anybody else. You know, we would talk and joke about things, and he was sort of on one side of the political fence, and I was on the other. So you know, sometimes I remember having, you know, fun conversations where I would bust his chops, and he was a master at you know, busting back, as all as Marky and Dee Dee and Joey were. Johnny was much more serious. So the ball busting level was real high, and it suited me just fine.
From your relationship with Joey Ramone, is there one thing that stands out to you?
I remember being in New York City. We were doing something at Madison Square Garden. The Misfits were. We were doing something at Madison Square Garden. It was towards the end, and Joey was sick. And I remember him trying to get in the front of the place, but he couldn't. There were so many people, and he was getting recognized. And again, he wasn't feeling good. And I remember me and a buddy of mine and someone else walking Joey around the back. And in my mind, he had this mask on that he was pulling over. I mean, you could tell it was Joey from 100 miles away. Mm-hmm. But I just remember him kind of being hunched over and walking in the back of Madison Square Garden with him, and just having my hand on his back and you know, kind of trying to, you know, keep people away from him, and just how sweet and humble he was. That was one of my last memories of Joey was that night.
Highlights from your 2002 Graves period?
Meeting and working with Loki, who I play with now, and meeting Tito Pacone, who's a good friend and a brother of mine. I just remember getting through some real hard times with those guys, and they, even to this day, those guys never giving up on me and never allowing me to give up on myself, and always being there in any sort of capacity, even back then.
How do you juggle having a family and being in this business and not having a deficit?
It's revealing the world to my children that makes sense to them and makes it worthwhile for their father to be gone. Again, I'm not out here just partying, living this rock and roll life. It's the light in the dark. I explained to my children, I'm out here, I'm making music, I'm making art, but I'm impacting people's lives in a profound way, in a positive way, and it's helping them get through. And by my sacrifice and their sacrifice of time and separation, we are changing the world for the good and making God smile.
Do you think there could be a Misfits reunion of the 97-2000 version, and what do you think the demand would be?
I think, of course, there could be, and of course there should be. There should be, of course. The demand, you'd think that the demand for the Glenn, Jerry Misfits is high. It would be astronomical. It would be at least 3, 4, 5 times what it is now. It's a no-brainer, you know, and people can't understand why it's so difficult and perhaps out of reach. And well, I think this interview and the way that I talked about my relationship and the way things went down with the Misfits should kind of spell it out, because I think at the end of the day, it's me, that those guys, they don't want me to be in front. They don't want me to be the tip of the spear, because all the things that I'm saying, all the things I've said to you is true. And I think that they're afraid that all of what I was saying in the past, that hey, I am special, hey, I did bring us back into the legitimate side of things. I wrote all these songs for you. I still play them. I'm still talking to the fans that love us. I'm still waving this flag. I think that if it was to culminate with a Misfits reunion, the spotlight would be shown on me, and too much attention would be put on me, and it would make those guys feel very uncomfortable. And so I think that it's the, you know, cutting off your nose to spite your face sort of thing.
This is the Blairing Out with Eric Blair show with Michael Graves signing off.
The Blairing Out show.